Superman is incredible. Hell, it's so good I've already seen it 3 times, and the movie only came out yesterday in my country, so when I say that this movie is special, that it means something to me, you best believe that this is a top-tier superhero movie. This movie had everything going against it from day uno, because not only did it have to establish an entirely new universe, but it also had the hellish task that no live-action Superman movie has been able to do for the past 47 years, and that's making Superman into a cool guy. Even I was one of the people who hated Superman because I thought he was a boring and lame guy. Whenever someone would talk about their favorite superheroes and they'd say that Superman was one of their favorites, I would always think, oh, that guy? Why do you like such a boring character? And all of this was because of one little movie, one tiny little movie called Man of Steel. This movie demolished Superman's public image so badly that it put me off from anything to do with his character for 12 years. Even when I saw that James Gunn, one of my favorite comic book movie directors of all time, was making the new Superman movie, I still had no faith whatsoever in the movie being good, until I saw the trailer. When I saw Superman doing this in the trailer, I was already pre-booking my tickets to go see this movie. I was getting hyped for a character that I couldn't give less of a fuck about 1 month ago. I think one of the things I like most about this movie is how much it demonstrates the empathy within Superman as a character. In fights, Superman will often prioritize saving the lives of innocents, no matter what they are, be it animal or human. Superman will take time out of the fight just to save them. Even with the villains he faces off against, he doesn't want to hurt them badly if he can help it. Like, there's a fight scene that happens in the movie where a monster gets killed, and Superman is like, couldn't we have given it a less painful demise? And that's what I love about this character. No matter how much destruction has been caused, no matter what you've done, Superman likes to see the good in people to do better. It's very clear that this movie's message is centered around hope. He's not some symbol for conflict. He is a man who wants to instill hope in people to do better in the world. And I mean, the movie makes that clear. Superman gets his ass beaten a lot throughout the movie, and it's not until he works together with people does he actually win at the end of the day. And I think that kind of messaging works very well with the character of Superman, that it's okay to rely on others. Hell, civilians on this movie will often go out of their way to help Superman out. And I just think that is so cool, man. It was cool in Spider-Man 2, and it's still cool now. I want to see more of that shit in superhero movies. This movie is just one of those experiences where you just feel good about yourself and the world when you finish watching it. I think that we as an audience have come to expect a more brutal approach when it comes to superheroes and action films alike. And I'm glad to see that a character whose whole deal is just being a wholesome guy is beloved by audiences. Not to say that brutal action is bad, but I can tell that some of these movies are taking a turn to being more of a wholesome experience than a brutal one. Hell, Thunderbolts was another movie where the entire point of it was self-love and acceptance. But it's not just the vibes that work. The story for this movie is pretty darn airtight. You'll be hard-pressed to find any problems because it feels like every action and character decision in this movie had a lot of careful thought put into it. Not to say that there aren't any issues, but compared to the good in the movie, they feel a lot more insignificant than anything. More on that later though. You can tell that James Gunn wanted to make this movie work, and for its intended purposes, it did. This movie does an excellent job at setting up not only Superman, but many of its new characters that it intends to expand upon in its new universe. The foundation for a universe that this movie sets up is so strong that I genuinely feel like I'm excited for superhero movies again. I'm excited for the Supergirl movie, I'm excited for Clayface, I'm excited for DC movies because I know that Gunn cares about the quality of these films. The amount of setup and payoff within the movie is quite insane. Rewatching the movie has made me appreciate the amount of detail within the film that I didn't realize was there before, or was set up quite early on within the film. I also love how unafraid this movie is to speak its mind on politics and what's going on in the world. And if you don't believe me, then there is a war going on in the movie that is a one-to-one depiction of the Israel-Palestine conflict. The only difference between the two is that the name of the countries have been changed within the context of the movie, which is why I think it's hilarious when a lot of people, especially from a certain side, are saying that the movie is not political at all. Like, did we watch the same movie? Superman is not only said to be an illegal immigrant, but he's also getting in trouble for interfering with a war going on. If you genuinely believe that this movie is not political at all, then there is no hope for you. You probably huff Elmer's glue at the back of a Hobby Lobby every night. I think it's also worth noting that every character in this movie feels like their comic counterpart. I look at David Corenswet as Superman, and I don't see a guy in a Superman costume, I see Superman himself. When I think of Superman, I think of David Corenswet, the same way I think of Robert Pattinson when I think of the Batman, or Hugh Jackman when I think of Wolverine. It's hard to make that big of an impression on your audience that really sticks with you, but they managed to do that with every single character in this movie. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is probably the standout character in the movie other than Corenswet. This movie makes a point to show you that Lex doesn't just hate Superman, he absolutely loathes him. If Lex was dying in the desert, and the only way he could get water was by asking Superman for help, he would rather die. That's how spiteful this man is. And it really makes for a fun performance, as you can tell that Nicholas Hoult is having the time of his life, acting as this hateful little redditor, to the point where I was convinced that the man on screen was the real Lex Luthor. It's honestly great. The only character I would say that doesn't work with me is Jimmy Olsen. I'm honestly surprised that no one has talked about him enough, but the man has no other discernible character traits other than the fact that he has this weird ability to pull conventionally attractive women, despite looking quite average. And if it was just a joke they did a couple times, then I wouldn't have minded, but it is spammed throughout the movie and it gets less and less funny every time it happens. His comedic escapades happen to be somewhat relevant to the plot, and the way they try to introduce it into the movie is pretty contrived, and honestly feels like they're trying to give Jimmy something to do, because they realized he would be practically a nothing burger of a character otherwise. Now, when it comes to comedic relief characters, I don't mind that much when they aren't really a character in the movie. But considering how good James Gunn is at writing characters, to the point of giving Polka Dot Man and Peacemaker, characters who are considered to be jokes, really strong emotional arcs, I don't know why my boy Jimmy Olsen is getting done so dirty. I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have minded as much if his character wasn't so integral to the plot of the movie, but maybe that's just me. Other than that, I would say that everyone else in the movie balances their characters very well. I've heard some complaints about how the movie feels too bloated, or that the Justice Gang takes away too much screen time from Superman, but I don't know. I think they're on screen for the right amount of time for me to be invested in them enough emotionally, but not too much to the point where they started to feel like they were overshadowing Superman in his own movie. While they aren't the most developed characters ever, that is kind of the point, as this movie only serves to be an introduction to them rather than their own story. But I do like the arcs that these characters go through in this movie. It's cool seeing how they get inspired to be better heroes because of Superman's own actions. It shows that Superman's actions and decisions do make an impact on the people around him and make the world a better place, which is an active theme throughout the movie. The music for this film is also insane. I love the way they incorporate John Williams' score within the movie as small bits, only for them to include the whole thing at the end to emphasize Superman's comeuppance. I think the way they experiment with the soundtrack is really neat as well. The movie's score ranges from classic superhero theming to an electric guitar being introduced. It's so raw for a superhero movie to use whatever instruments they want, and the end result of it is a soundtrack that goes so fucking hard. The score, like everything else in the movie, emphasizes how important Superman as a character truly is. Every element of this movie respects the character, and the soundtrack is no different. Speaking of which, the cinematography in this movie is incredible. No, it's not the Batman levels of fantastic, but it doesn't need to be. The dynamic camera movements during the action scenes make the action feel so much more intense and engaging. The way the camera will sometimes just zoom in on Superman's symbol is probably the coolest thing that has ever been done in a Superman movie. The movie is just so energetic, and that feeling is super infectious and never once lets up during its entire runtime. There was once even an action scene that was done in one take that honestly made my soul light up. The filmography and action are honestly so much fun, and that's the only thing I can ask for in a movie like this, is to just be fun. I don't ask for a lot with these superhero movies. If you show me a fun time with some good writing mixed in, chances are that I'm going to love it. This movie is quite a promising start to the new DC cinematic universe, and I'm really excited to see where it takes us next. I don't think there's a better person who could be at the helm of DC in this case, other than James Gunn himself. So if you haven't already, go watch the movie, and I'm going to give Superman a super 9 out of 10. Hey all, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord to be a part of the community. I'm also planning on streaming tomorrow, where I'll be discussing Superman with a friend of mine in a more in-depth conversation, so if that's something that sounds interesting to you, then stay tuned for that. Otherwise, that's about it. There'll be a video on the bear coming out in about a week or so, and my Andor video should be out by the end of the month. So as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good one, y'all. Take care.